Illegal immigrant protesters or newcomers, they basically shut down a Seattle City Council meeting demanding housing help for refugees. Now, the ironic thing here is that the city of Seattle had already contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to help out the immigrants. And the immigrants are actually not living in the city of Seattle. They're living in suburban communities, but they go to the Seattle City Council meeting because somebody told them that's where you need to go. Let's get into this craziness. Here we go. So you've got some Looney Tunes that went to a meeting and they did their thing. And some of the other backstory is the woman that you're going to hear is Sarah Nelson. She is the new Seattle City president of the council, and she is very moderate, and she is not having any of the shenanigans of protesters in Seattle City Council meetings, whereas in the past when we had Shama Sawant and a number of other very progressive people on the Seattle City Council, they were all protest. Come on in, this greatest thing ever. Well, now we're doing arrests, and we're thinking about doing maybe prosecuting some of these folks. Here we go.
We're on.
Okay, the meeting is now out of recess. It is 2:54 p.m. The audience will come to order. The president has asked the meeting to come to order, and order has not been restored. The room will be cleared, and once cleared, the meeting will continue in session. Only members of the media are allowed to remain in the room, and those who did not participate in the disturbance. Security, would you please clear the room?
Take the lowlifes out. Get them out. Protesters out.
Testing 1, 2.
It is 2:55. We will go into recess until 3:10.
So what you had there is they were coming off of, they already had their meeting, had massive amounts of protests, and then they shut her down for for a recess, and they brought security in and they brought cops in. And so this was that, all right, we're clearing out the room now. No more of this ridiculousness. You guys are out of here. Protesters disrupt Seattle City Council meeting demanding housing help for refugees. Group of protesters disrupted a Seattle City Council meeting Tuesday afternoon demanding city fund temporary housing for refugees who are once again facing eviction. City of Seattle previously paid for just under a month of housing for the refugees from Latin America who have bounced around from a church in Tukwila to hotels in South King County for the last few months. A group marched on the steps of Seattle City Hall Tuesday and into the council chambers, chanting and requesting the city use police funding for housing for their housing needs. So they want to defund the police and give it to the illegal immigrants not living in Seattle. That's the bottom line. Because City of Seattle had already ponied up money. But now you've got these people coming from other areas, notably Kent and Tukwila. And because they know Seattle has money, bottom line, some of what you're seeing here, these are stop the sweeps. These are basically Antifa in various different colors. You've got these people that you'll also see them at the pro-Palestine rallies. You'll see the same people. They're just up for a good cause. And so this one, they basically shut down the Seattle City Council meeting so that they could get their message heard. Seattle City Council President Sarah Nelson started the meeting saying the city has an obligation to taxpayers to provide housing for people in need in Seattle, like the homeless along 3rd Avenue That's the blade that I always talk about. 3rd Avenue between Pike and Pine, that's the blade, and anywhere in that area is just a absolute shenanigans show. And the Chinatown International District is just down the hill from where that homeless encampment fire that I showed you earlier in this live stream happened. So you go over that I-90 on-ramp, and you are literally in the Chinatown International District. And you've got people in tents living all over. It's horrific. And then in Ballard, where Sarah Nelson, the Seattle City Council member, the president, that's where her business is, Fremont Brewing. You've had all kinds of crazy homeless encampment stuff. Remember Lawnmower Man? That was in Ballard. That was in the Ballard area of Seattle. So Sarah Nelson said discussions about refugee funding need to happen at the county and state level because there are such limited resources the city has. But they went after the city because the city used to be responsive to protesters. Not anymore. Not anymore. I'd say there's a new sheriff in town, but there's a new president of the Seattle City Council, and she's playing it by the books. And she got about six of them arrested. Good for her. I'm totally down with that. Arrest anybody you need to. Don't care. The commotion forced city council members to leave the chambers and take a recess. Seattle police arrived at the scene about 2:55 and spoke with some protesters in the chambers as refugee families waited outside. The council eventually resumed their proceedings. I mean, what a way to get your point across. Let's go ahead and defund the police, because we've shown what a genius concept that is. Let's give some of those funds to the illegals that are here illegally, but need to be housed and whatnot anyway. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you've got shenanigans happening just in so many ways, shapes, and forms. And so city of Seattle, this isn't even their province of where we're talking about. People are being evicted. And yet, because they're the big city around, and they've been very pro-protester in the past. Remember when Shama Sawant, she let Antifa and Black Lives Matter into these very chambers at like 10:30 at night during CHOP. Let's just go have a kumbaya moment in Seattle City Council, in their building, and this will be fine. It should be all good. I mean, that was just straight up illegal, right? So in the past, city of Seattle has been very pro-protester. But, coming off of the craziness of the summer of love with Fentanyl Floyd, things have changed. You got to bring some law and order back. You have to have some reasonable people do reasonable things, because that is literally what you've got going on here. And you've got a handful. You notice there isn't any arguing between the city council president and the other members, because the vast majority of the other members, there's 9 of them, they are more reasonable. They're like, we're trying to get something done. I'm not saying any of them are Republican or Republican leaning, but they are certainly more moderate than being a straight up socialist of America, right? Just a commie. Seattle police said that they arrested 6 people after they were warned and refused to stop. Hey, stop your protesting. Stop. To have to tell somebody that, you know what I mean? I mean, officers arrested 3 men and 3 women for criminal trespassing. One of the men was also charged with obstruction of justice. Police said all 6 people were booked into the King County Jail. Police also noted that many others in the chambers left without any issues. All right. So, I mean, the vast majority of them probably did, but the Stop the Sweeps people, they're the ones that got arrested. And then let's go to here. Seattle City Attorney weighing charges against protesters who derailed the council meeting. Let's hear what Jeremy Harris has to say. And Jeremy, you dipped out, Andrea and I, in that dangerous homeless encampment. Whew, yeah. Yeah, he had something to do as we're just, wandering around in some human poop.
Well, prosecutors right now are reviewing what criminal charges these protesters may face, but the council itself is also reviewing its protocols for what to do when protesters disrupt their meetings and, in this case, shut it down. It was banging and screaming that derailed this week's Seattle City Council meeting. We're not sorry! We're not sorry! Activists demanding the council pay to house migrant families in Tukwila and Kent, When they were told no, they shut down the meeting.
Our physical safety is being threatened by the actions of the demonstrators outside, banging on the windows, which could easily get broken, and we will have a mob scene. I'm asking for police presence to arrest those individuals.
Tuesday crossed the line.
Today, Council President.
You wouldn't have heard a council member say that kind of thing when you had Shama Sawant and a bunch of these other nut jobs on the Seattle City Council. You wouldn't have heard, they would have been shouted down. It would have been just chaos, pandemonium. And essentially what you had is you had a rogue city council. But now you've got this fine young lady who is reasonable, in my opinion, and she is saying no to this ridiculousness in Seattle.
President Sarah Nelson said the council staff is looking at protocols for if this happens again.
But what is new is that I'm not going to allow it to disrupt our meetings so that we can't continue with the business of the people.
Police arrested 6 of the protesters, but jail records show they were quickly bailed out by the Northwest Community Bail Fund. Prosecutors say they are reviewing charges, which could be the first time in a while that council chamber outbursts lead to criminal charges.
We cannot let the business of the city be derailed by these kinds of protests.
Nelson says the council has sympathy for the refugees in Tukwila and points out the city of Seattle previously paid to help house them in a hotel. And King County just dropped $1 million to support the refugees this week.
The people that were removed from chambers were local activists who were using this issue of what was going on in Tukwila as a vehicle to press their own agenda.
Well said.
We know some of those protesters who were arrested are affiliated with a group called Stop the Sweeps Seattle. The Seattle City Attorney's Office told me that their prosecutors are looking that over right now, but they will likely make a decision soon on what charges, if any, will be filed in court. Reporting outside City Hall, Jeremy Harris, Como News.
So will Seattle's new president, Sarah Nelson, will she become the target for just the beatdown by these protesters? You know? Probably. Because these protesters have been used to getting their way. We've had such a liberal, such a woke. I mean, to call the Seattle City Council woke would be just a wild understatement. I mean, we literally had Socialists of America, whatever that organization is. Shama Sawant was a bona fide member. She was a card-carrying socialist member. And her agenda was, tax Amazon, take from the rich, give to the poor, all this crazy stuff. I mean, I did podcasts back in the day on just the utter lunacy and shenanigans that Seattle had going on. Now you've got Sarah Nelson. So now it's like there's a new principal, right? There's a new sheriff in town. And so these folks are going to have to get used to that. So one of the big questions is will they press charges? And I have not seen anything on actually pressing charges. I would guess no. But if I think the Seattle City Council will have all right, let's figure out what we do moving forward. What does that look like? And, maybe there's some coordination there with prosecutor's office. I don't know on actually, charging these folks with disrupting a city council meeting, which should be happening on the regular. It happens elsewhere. Things get shut down, take the bad apples out. And what's so crazy about this one is that this isn't even the city of Seattle's fight. This isn't the city of Seattle's battle. It's a bunch of protesters coming in, Stop the Sweeps protesters, who are just, protest damn near anything. You got a cause, we're your guys and gals. We'll help you out. I mean, they don't really care. They just want to protest, right? They want to bring their umbrellas. They want to whack their umbrellas on Jonathan Cho and tell him he's a terrible human being. They want to, just do crazy stuff. And when there's a cause like this, we've got the migrants being kicked out down in Tukwila and Kent. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? These are people that came into the country illegally, took a bus ride from wherever to get to here. And so that was one of the reasons I wanted to bring up this podcast, because I don't talk a lot about the illegal immigrants here in Seattle, but we've got them. We've got them, just not a ton of them, because I think geographically we're pretty far away from where they're coming in on that southern border. There's some coming through the northern border, but not a lot, because, that whole getting through the U.S. thing. If you're going to come up through Central or South America, then you're clearly going to use the southern border somehow. But if you can fly into somewhere in Canada, that's where some of the migratory patterns, I guess you're going to call them now. But Seattle does have their issues with the illegal immigrants. And this is that perfect example of, all right, so they're getting kicked out. Why Seattle? Well, we heard why Seattle, because they were told, go to Seattle. Number one, they'll listen to you, and they got the bigger pockets of anybody else around, right? Seattle City Council Incorporated. They've got money. Yes, they do. They've got money. How about you? Used to be a chant at Mercer Island High School, very wealthy high school when I was in high school, and the parents would pull out hundreds and they'd be getting trounced. This is old Mercer Island versus Bellevue story. They'd be getting trounced by whatever high school around them because they just weren't good, way back in the day. Then they became pretty good. They'd pull out $100 bills and go, we've got money. Yes, we do. We've got money. How about you? And I'm not very sympathetic to those that are, don't have a lot of money, but crazy stuff. Rich people do crazy stuff, right? It's like, okay, what kind of example is that sending to your kids? Seattle's got the money. These other communities don't. So the protesters follow the money. And so now maybe we're going to be following them to jail. Another piece I'll share with you is there was rumor, there was talk about the reason that Steve Irwin, Seattle's mining man, logger, miner, he's a Renaissance man. Let's be honest. Steve Irwin, he might have been mining, but he was a Renaissance man. He's building his own place. He's living off the grid. Well, kind of. You got that power line that he jacked from the city power pole, but you can't worry about those kind of details. Got to give the guy credit. When he got arrested, there was rumors that the bail bond fund had just spent all their money on the bail to bail out these 6 people. And didn't have any more money for Steve, and that's why Steve was in jail for as long as he was. But don't worry, he's back now, and he's back in the park. And I literally, like I said earlier, got a text from Andrea Suarez saying, Steve's got a generator. Steve's back, and he's got a generator. What could be better than that? I'll go over there and take another look. I'll wander down and see what Steve's got going on. But the protesters in City of Seattle Council meeting, will that come to an end? That kind of interaction come to an end if a couple of people get arrested and prosecuted? Yeah, that will definitely dampen what they perceive to be, which was an opportunity at any given whatever it is, whether it's stop the sweeps, homeless encampment sweeps, or, we need more money for the migrants, or defund the police, or any of these just incredibly genius shenanigans they want to come up with that don't really do anything. They did many negative things during the Summer of Love, but they don't have a positive impact that I can see. And, Seattle's just trying to conduct its business. This wasn't even a topic of discussion in the Seattle City Council meeting. It wasn't on board at all. They just came down, busted up the meeting, got interrupted multiple times. Handful of them got arrested. It's what we're doing in Seattle, because that's just Seattle. It's Freeattle. Crazy stuff. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for supporting. Love to have you subscribe. The very best way you can support the channel is to share this content out. Take that little share symbol and share that content out. Just a video every now and then. It really helps the algorithm, because then YouTube realizes, oh, okay, they're sharing this content. It's got to be good, right? It's got to be decent. All right, that's it for me. I'll see you on the next segment. Thanks again for being here. We'll catch up with you soon. Bye for now.